Good evening. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Stephanie Mayuri, and I'm the Executive Director of the Alliance for Early Childhood. Our program tonight is Stop Yelling, Holding Boundaries to Stay Balanced at Home. Can't help to giggle about this topic and also think how needed it is right now with everything that we've been going through this past year. We at the Alliance have really worked hard this year to adapt our programming as a supportive response to our community of parents and educators. And this is the third program in a series called Pandemic Parenting Tools and Tips. We've really seen our audience grow over the past several months. And tonight we have a really wide net that we're casting, and we are very eager to support you wherever you're at. And we are very grateful to all the member schools of the Alliance to help us bring this vision to life and help us be who we are. We have launched this program, Infant Early Childhood Mental Health Consulting, with our local, and you probably know her by now very well, Molly Pope. She has so many resources and expertise to share with us, and we picked her because she has been in the field as a practitioner, an educator, a parent, and she really brings us some very tangible expertise that we can put to practice. And we are so thrilled to have her here tonight. And before I turn it over to Molly, I want to thank our gold sponsors who also support the Alliance. We have Winnetka Park District, Winnetka Community Nursery School, FAN, Northwestern Center for Talent Development, Gainsborough Law, and New Trier Township, Kenilworth Community Fund, and the schools of St. Joseph and Francis Xavier. We are very grateful to your support and helping us exist. The Alliance is a 503c. We are a nonprofit organization. So if you are motivated, we would love for you to visit our website and consider supporting us. We really depend on support from our community to have our programs free and open to the public. So thank you so much for being here. Molly, are you here? Hi.
I'm here.
Thank you so much for being here. We have a really big crowd tonight and probably an even bigger crowd tuning in later. So I want to hand it over to you so you have enough time to do your thing.
All right. Thanks, Steph. I'm
Thanks,
going to go
Molly.
ahead and share my screen.
Okay.
And get our slideshow up and going. I hope you guys are cozy here in Chicago. We have 26 inches of snow or something ridiculous like that. So I guess one benefit of the pandemic is we can do this from our homes versus trying to shovel out our car and get somewhere. It just sounds not as appealing. So welcome. And tonight I'm going to be talking about yelling. I'm going to talk about what we need to do to help regulate ourselves and support our children, and maybe help prevent some of those situations that cause us to yell from happening on such a frequent basis, so we can have a little more balance, a little more peace in our home. I'm really happy to be here with you tonight. I love talking to parents. I love working with parents. And tonight we're going to talk about and take a look at what triggers us, learn how to better manage our stress, and how to stay balanced in ourselves and in our homes so that we don't end up yelling at our kids. It's kind of just as advertised. So this is me, and this is really me. There's my fam. But who am I? I am trained as a school psychologist, and I have been in the field for 15 years working in early childhood and elementary school settings. And like Stephanie said, I'm an infant and early childhood mental health consultant, and I work with schools and preschools and daycares in supporting children in classrooms that way. I am currently a preschool teacher for a 2-year-old class. We were out there today in the snow. It was deeper than some of them are tall. And then I'm also a parent coach, and I work one-on-one with parents. And really, who do I work with? I work with parents who are worried about their kids' behavior and really get them to a place where they're responding with confidence. There's my fam. I have 2 boys, 14 and 10. And they both look very 14 and 10 in that photo. That was our Christmas photo. And they're being very quiet right now in the house. I'm very appreciative. Hopefully no yelling from me in this presentation. Okay, so here's our plan. We want to be finding and understanding what triggers you and really leads you to, lose it. And it's important really then to take a look at what role stress plays in your day-to-day life. Again, today's February 18th, 2021. We're coming up on a year anniversary of this pandemic. So stress, yes, it's there. I want to talk about how we need and what kind of strategies we can have to soothe our sensory system as adults. And then talk about shifting our mindset from feeling overwhelmed and how to get to a place where we're feeling calm and confident. And then the 3 key elements to getting cooperation in your home. So we're just going to start here. And really starting here to look at why am I yelling? We need to first start by compassionately asking ourselves, how am I doing, right? What sets me off? And if I'm totally honest with you guys, I probably misnamed this presentation by calling it Stop Yelling, because I think if you are a human being, that's an unrealistic goal to completely stop yelling. A more realistic, a more human goal is to yell less, right? Maybe yell less and take responsibility for our behavior with our children. But that kind of seemed like a long title, so we made it really short. But with that, let's begin. So I want to talk about the brain here. And this slide and this concept is from Conscious Discipline, which is parenting and teaching strategies that I was trained in and have found so helpful when trying to explain kind of what sets us off. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this, right? There's 3 basic brain, body, mind states that are all in play when we lose it. And so knowing about the brain can help us move from judging ourselves to really accepting what's happening. So this isn't intended to turn you guys into neuroscientists or therapists, but this sharing is designed to help you know which strategy might be helpful in bringing you or your child from a disorganized internal state to a more organized, regulated internal state so that you can engage, they can play, you can solve problems together. So we'll start at the bottom, the red, right? If I make a fist and pretend this is my brain, here's my brainstem. When we're down in our brainstem, it's really, we're in that fight or flight state, right? We might know it as the lizard brain. Sometimes it gets called the caveman brain. And really the question that we are asking and we are seeking in our environment to get information on is, am I safe, right? If anyone's familiar with the work of Stephen Porges, it's that neuroception, right? We're scanning our environment. That second tier up, the blue, that's our emotional state. For, the best way to call it, it's when our limbic system is activated. And the question that we're asking and we're seeking our environment to find information on is, am I loved? Am I lovable? When we are organized, when we're jamming and things are going well, we're in and able to access that executive state. That's our right behind our forehead, the prefrontal lobe. What can I learn from this? I can problem solve, I can create, I can connect. So this might be familiar to some of you, and I find it really helpful. It's something that I've taught to children, and it's just an easy term to kind of think about what happens in our body and in our brain when we lose it. So if we want to yell less, we want to try and stay more regulated. But to understand what dysregulated is, we talk about this hand model. So if you take your hand, you put your thumb right in the palm of your hand and you fold your fingers down, you've just created your own little brain model, just like the brain we saw on that previous slide. Here's my brainstem. Here's my amygdala, which is part of the limbic system that has my feeling center. And then here's my frontal cortex. When I flip my lid, there's my exposed amygdala. That's when I'm yelling that's when I've lost it. So this is something that Dr. Daniel Siegel, he's a neuropsychiatrist, really talks about and uses to teach both adults, but really children, to understand what's happening in their brain. And his whole thing is, you got to name it to tame it. So part of coming out of that emotional state, closing your lid, is knowing what emotion is flooding your body. So you might say, well, I'm angry, right? I'm pissed. But anger is one of those iceberg emotions, right? Where there's a lot more happening under the surface. And you really want to get down to figure out, what is that that's under? You know, I'm overwhelmed. I'm feeling underappreciated. I'm feeling isolated, disconnected. Those are the things that can trigger anger. When we name what we're flooded with, we can bring some awareness, some understanding, some compassion, and eventually some problem solving around that feeling that we're having. It can be humbling, right? It can be embarrassing, uncomfortable, but having big emotions is part of being human. And so understanding that once we name something, we kind of bring it out of the light, out into the light, that's when we're able to process and move through it and move on. So that's what happens in our brain, right? We flip our lid, but what causes it to flip? So that's what we call our triggers. And I always start here when I think about and talk about triggers. HALT, the acronym, some of you might know it: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. If we are any one of those, it is probably likely that maybe our lid didn't flip, but it has certainly floated up. And so there we are in that exposed feeling state. In my house, we've added also hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or if you have to go to the bathroom. Right. There's other things that trigger us as well. We often talk about kids and their sensory systems. We understand that little systems can get overwhelmed by loud noises, bright lights. Well, guess what? Our sensory system can get overwhelmed too, right? We can feel touched out at the end of the day. The visual clutter on our countertops and in our home can feel overwhelming. Loud noise, bright lights. Feeling claustrophobic and cabin fevery, right? That's a sensory feeling. Being too hot, too cold, smells, all of these things can lead your lid to float up, and that you're more likely to lose it. And then there's this thing they call shark music. So shark music is an analogy for when we see a threat in a non-threatening situation. And it comes from old feelings that we've had and held since our childhood. So this could get triggered and come up when your child behaves in a certain way that was unacceptable for you to behave in your home as a child. So it's the unspoken rules that you weren't always told, but you knew how to behave in your house, right? So it might not have been okay for kids to show anger in your house. That got shut down. Only adults get angry in this house, right? It's not a rule, but that's how it went down. So now you're the adult, and you might not have developed or had modeled healthy ways to cope and manage your anger. So now you have a kid who gets big and angry. That's uncomfortable, right? That's uncomfortable if that's been our experience. So rather than being able to be present, to keep our lid down, to be empathetic and coach our kid through that experience that they're having, we're having a moment where we're getting triggered and we want to rid ourselves of that discomfort. So we might ignore, we might walk away, or we might explode right back. So I just bring up this concept of shark music because we can get triggered by things that we're not even conscious of, right? We don't even know what just happened. And then there's stress, right? So in addition to our triggers, whether it's HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, have to go to the bathroom, or it's sensory, or it's our shark music, we experience stress as parents. And it comes from all sorts of sources, right? You're trying to read a recipe, you're trying to get through your email, you're trying to do a work task, constant interruptions, a lack of sleep, maybe your child's developmental age and what is totally appropriate for them to be doing also is very stressful. Right? If you have someone who you're really trying to get potty trained and you're really trying to catch them and remember to get them to go right before they need to go, and there's accidents, it can be stressful. A lack of appreciation, right? When you're doing it all and you're really not hearing the thank yous and we appreciate you. The sibling fights, a lack of outside support, which right now in the pandemic, I think most families are experiencing. When you skip your self-care routines, the weather, any changes in your routine, and then poor boundaries, or when we're not able to hold our boundaries. All of those things build up, and build up to stress. So, right, sometimes we just don't have a lot of patience. But I just want to share this quote from Donald Winnicott, who is an early 20th century developmental pediatrician, psychoanalyst, and one of the real founding fathers of infant mental health and attachment. He says, "I would rather be the child of a mother who has all the inner conflicts of the human being than be mothered by someone for whom all is easy and smooth, who knows all the answers and is a stranger to doubt." So take that one with you, right? We want our kids to see that we are human, and we want to teach them how to be a full human and fully accepting of all our strengths and flaws so that when they grow up, they can accept who they are. So we talked about triggers, we talked about stress, and we really need to talk about self-care. And it really starts with adult regulation. And I think there's been enough talk through this pandemic around self-care that it isn't bubble baths and massages and, whatever else social media has told us self-care is. Self-care is really the care that keeps us not having breakdowns and managing our stress. So again, it starts with adult regulation. So that's what we're going to talk about first here. Right? You've all seen this. Self-care is what helps us stay regulated. We have to put on our own oxygen mask before helping those around us. We can't give what we don't have. And maybe coffee is what's helping you along, a little caffeine. So when we talk about regulation, we need to talk about both strategies for our brain and our thoughts and strategies for our body. I think it used to just be like, wow, you can, think your way out of this. But just take a moment and think about the last time you lost it. Your heart might have been racing. Your jaw might have been clenched. Your shoulders might have been up. You might have been holding your breath. All of those are body things that we need to address so that we can start to bring ourselves back into a regulated state where that lid can come back down, right? We can't just deal with our brain. We have to address our body because it's in that combination of both that we really find our regulation. So how do we do that? So if you want to yell less, what can you do instead? On the left side there, those are things that address the body, right? So the do addresses the body and soothing your nervous system, and the think is addressing your thoughts, that emotional center in your brain that's always asking, am I loved? Am I lovable? So to get out of that brain state with the flipped lid, you need to address both your body and thoughts. So just kind of look over on that left, taking a deep breath with a hand on your heart and your belly. Get a drink of water. Repeat a mantra. You text a friend. Count backwards or forwards in multiples. I use multiples of 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, right? Something a little bit novel than just counting up to 10. Getting outside, opening the back door, get a breath of fresh air, have a snack, stretch or move your body, right? All these things can trigger some soothing and relaxation into your body. And it takes time. It takes time to come down from those big flipped lid moments, because you need to metabolize that emotion, right? And emotion needs motion. You got to think about that. It's going to take 10 to 15 minutes to really get yourself back and regulated. And while those moments are happening, those minutes are clicking by, you can address your head trash, address what you're thinking, right? So about your child, she's having a hard time. You can remind yourself, unless it is, this is not an emergency. I do not need to call 911, not an emergency. He needs my help learning this skill, right? He's not doing this to manipulate me. This is something he's not capable of in this moment right now. This parenting is really hard. I'm doing the best that I can. I love my kids too much to give up now. I made a mistake, but that doesn't mean I'm a horrible mom, right? And that last one is that name it to tame it. I am feeling overwhelmed, right? You want to name it so that you know what you're dealing with. So as much as we talked about triggers that make us flip our lid, there are happiness triggers too, right? And these are all, again, involving our sensory system. So, right, crawling into clean sheets, some favorite smells. If you have a candle burning behind me, right? I had to choose like, which scent do I want? I love having some scent to kind of just set a mood, right? Music, touch, like hugs, comfort food, that taste, giggles, releases some good endorphins, right? So we talked about how to soothe. We talked about regulating. And I just want to switch a little bit adjacent to talk about healthy boundaries and mindset, right? Because that's part of your self-care too. When we create and respect our boundaries, other people will too. It's just self-care 101. It has to start with us. And that's why self-awareness around your triggers and your feelings is so important. You have to be aware of what's dragging you down and what you need, and then ask for it. And that's what boundaries are. Boundaries are you asking for what you need. So I want to take a look at this because this I thought was super interesting. This is from an Instagram account that I follow that I think is such a great resource called Curious Parenting. But here are some examples of setting boundaries with your children. And this might feel uncomfortable at first, but we're going to kind of look through. So when I say, after I get out of the shower, I'll be ready to build with you. And what are we really teaching when we are sharing a boundary with our child? So we're modeling that taking care of myself and the people that I love, it's not mutually exclusive. I can do both, but I'm going to set a boundary about how it's going to look. I don't want to play hide and seek right now. Let's find something that we both love to do, right? We all have those moments where like, oh my gosh, if it's another game of this Go Fish, I'm going to, poke my eyes out. So say it, right? We can work together to find something we both like. That's compromise. That's an essential skill for kids to learn. And there you are teaching it at home for yourself. You don't need to be a martyr, right? That's what a lot of this is around, is some martyrdom that parents can carry. I don't want anyone on my lap right now, but I'd love for you to sit next to me, right? There's different ways to connect. And I never have to do anything I don't want to do, especially with touch and with my body, right? That's around consent. I like to have privacy when I'm in the bathroom. Please give me 5 minutes. So it might take a while to get people used to that if they're not used to that, but it's okay to set boundaries with people I love. Other areas in your life that might need some boundaries. So one might be your phone, right? How often are you on it? Where does it live when you're sleeping? Is it next to you? Is it downstairs? But that might be something that you might need to take a look at to create some boundaries for yourself. The other place that we often need boundaries is on tasks that we think only we can do, right? Maybe it's changing a diaper, stacking the dishwasher a certain way, bringing someone to grandma's that, oh, I do that drive better than she does, so I'm going to always do that. But you can distribute those tasks and, just give yourself a little space from it always having to be you. And then the last one there I said was energy vampires, right? I don't know if anyone watches this show. Or now I'm forgetting the name, right? In the shadows with the vampires, and there's an energy vampire. Anyway, whether it's someone on social media, a neighbor, a family member, you need to trust yourself, unfollow, say thanks, but no thanks, right? And protect your time and your resources. That's really what boundaries are about. So here we are about to straddle the topic from boundaries into mindsets. The shoulds that we put ourselves often lead us to crossing our own boundaries. So the mindset work that is needed here is reframing, right? So rather than thinking of things that you should be doing, which is not helpful, let's reframe it. So let's take that load of laundry that's probably sitting in your dryer right now. You could do that laundry while you're watching this or listening to this, or you could be present, take notes, sip from your cup, whatever you're drinking. You choose what would serve you right now, and then let it go, right? When we let those things kind of rattle around in our brain of what we should be doing, we're really robbing ourselves of being present to what we've committed to. Ultimately, we have free will. We're responsible and in charge of our choices. I have to go exercise becomes I'm going to go exercise, or I get to exercise. I should call my sister becomes I could call my sister. Choose what will serve you and then let the rest go. No other person makes us feel or do anything. When we accept this, a statement like, the kids are driving me crazy, changes to, I'm overwhelmed with the chaos. I'm safe. Keep breathing. I can handle this. You are in charge of you. That looks like my backyard, my garage and my house, all buried in the snow. But some of us might be experiencing this, especially now with the challenges of the weather. But what we think has a lot of power over us. So lots of parents are feeling trapped right now, right? Here we come up on this anniversary of the pandemic. We want to get through this current crisis to where we're going to just feel better. We can spin the drain of all the things that are pretty sucky, right? But entertaining negative thoughts tends to make us feel worse. The goal is to first see those negative thoughts as thoughts, not truths. Feelings drive thoughts. So what's the feeling underneath, right? And give yourself a moment to sit with it, to process that emotion, call a friend, talk it out. And then we intentionally put those thoughts that are making us feel worse aside, and we focus on something that brings us joy. So you really have to be intentional about that so that you don't pull yourself down further. And what could those things be, right? These are those temporary moments that we kind of lose touch with. The sound of your child's laugh, the cute way they say a word, right? We all have one. My son said hotowels instead of hotel because you had the towels. So cute. You know, their small hand in yours. These are temporary things that really do bring us joy as parents. So here we are. What can we do, right? We know what our triggers are. Yep, Molly, I got it. I know what it is. We know how to regulate ourselves. Great, we're going to employ those tactics. But my house is chaos and no one's listening to me. And if she touches her brother one more time, I'm going to snap. Okay, we want to talk about how to make a plan. We want to talk about family rules. We want to talk about establishing routines. But before we can do any of that, we really have to get curious. I started talking off about triggers, why you're flipping your lid, how to regulate your brain and your body, all to increase calm. But your calm's not going to last if you're surrounded by chaos, right? So there we are on the right, family when they did leave the house for work. This picture is outdated, right? Chaos. So let's make a plan. We're going to start by doing our detective work. Where are you most challenged? Where is it breaking down? You know, where do you yell? What's happening? I think of like all those crime scene shows where they make like the 3D replica, like Bones or CSI. It's like, okay, think about what's happening in the environment when you're losing it. Where are they sitting? What time of day is it, right? What just happened? Is it structured or unstructured? And so here's how we go through. Is there a part in your day or week that needs attention? Is it the morning routine? Is it dinner time or any meal time? Is it something to do with remote learning? And that's where you're going to make a plan, right? So that's going to include some of these rules we'll talk about. And is there a routine that could support that time of day? Is there a situation that occurs often that needs some attention? The constantly poking your sister, the whining, not completing chores, right? Then we're going to bring in our rules and routines. Has there been a change in your family? A parent going outside of the home to work, maybe grandma moves in, right? During the pandemic now, a lot of us have experienced lots of those kinds of changes. And so what was working before isn't working so well. Or maybe what was working at the beginning of the pandemic isn't working so well now. So we need to identify those areas and then we're going to reassess. So when I talk about family rules, I'm not talking about this kind. If you've ever stepped into a Home Goods, a TJ Maxx, you've seen one of these home decor signs and they're cute. I'm not knocking them. They're sweet and they can really reflect, you know, what your family values are. But it's not what I'm talking about when I'm saying family rules. These are not helpful when one kid is teetering on the back of the couch about to pile drive his sister, right? You're not going to be like, be happy. So let's talk about what works. Family rules. So what are you going to do? Everyone is going to get on the same page. That's the whole goal. Part of what leads to yelling is that we say too much. There's too much talking. We're talking, we're giving lots of directions. We talk to one child and then we talk to the other one. We're shouting up the stairs because they're on the other floor. And kids tune us out, right? We get frustrated, they're not listening, and then we yell. So agreed upon rules cut down on that overwhelmed thinking that we experience when it's like, why do I have to explain to you why it's not okay to pile drive your sister from the top of the couch? You should know this, right? And so you're trying to come up with like the words and the reasons and like what we value and like whose child are you, right? So we cut down on that. Your rules do the talking for you. But in order to have rules that make sense, you have to have the whole family involved for buy-in. So first, adults prep ahead of the family meeting. You kind of have a sense of where you want this meeting to go and what you want to have on your rules. And when I'm saying rules, I'm talking about like a piece of construction paper, 8.5 by 11. And then when you get together, everybody brainstorms. What's important to you guys, right? So, and you let all the ideas come out. They might not all be winners. They might not go on your final draft, but you want to have everybody feel like they have some contribution and that they're involved in this process. You're going to end up with 3 to 5 rules. And I always say, lead your rules with safety. Safety as a rule covers a lot, right? And we want our kids to understand we're not here to kill the fun, but we are here to keep it safe. So that's a great one to start with. And then we state the rule in the positive. So what does that look like? Here's an example, right? So be safe, be a good listener, gentle hands, walking feet, be a good helper, right? I want them to clean up their rooms. I want them to help bring in the groceries. I want them to put their shoes in the shoe spot, Indoor voice. I hate screaming. Let's use an indoor voice. Being kind, right? Poking your sister. Not very kind. So before I move on, let me just say, you and your family have a brainstorm. You kind of write these up, and maybe you have some non-readers in your family, and it's going to be important that people look at this. So maybe you draw some little pictures, right? Like, be a good listener. Maybe you have a person with some ears and you point to the ears, right? Be safe. Maybe it's holding hands, walking across the street. I'm talking stick figures. No one has to be an expert artist, but give some reference so even your littlest family members can know what's expected in our house. What do we do? What do we do to be part of this family? Right? I think of those signs that some people have on their yard that say, like, in this house we believe. This is what you believe. This is what reflects your values. And you want to make rules that fit your needs now, right? So while I just said keep the rules in the positive, there might be times when it's helpful to have a rule stated as a negative statement. You might have someone who's developmentally at an age where they're exploring their voice, and you might need a specific rule to teach the expectation of no screaming. And same with biting, right? If you have someone who's just at that age, at that preschool age, they don't have a lot of language, they can't communicate what they want and don't want, and so they're biting, we're going to maybe say no biting, because that's what you say, and you respond when the biting happens in the moment. If you have a problem not being able to find things, or there's electronics maybe that get left in rooms and they're not getting charged, maybe a specific rule to teach the good habit of putting things away would be important for you right now. So, and maybe you're a family that takes your shoes off. I put that no guns up there because that got added to our family rules. So a few years ago, 6 years ago, when Illinois passed the law where there was no concealed guns allowed in public places, and then in every public place at kid eye level, they put a gun with a Ghostbusters no red circle and slash through it. It caused us to have a lot of family conversations about guns. And my 5-year-old was like, well, no guns here, so let's add that to the family rules. Yes, okay, let's add that. I, thought that was just understood, but yeah, let's add it. Because these rules, you want to meet them where they are developmentally. Maybe you're going to redo them in a few years. Probably not, though. They're probably going to sit up there in memoriam and just capture this moment in time where everybody agreed, in this house, we believe. So when you make your little 8.5 by 11 construction paper rules with your pictures on the side, you're going to post them, right? You're going to tape them up on the fridge or wherever your things go. And it's going to be at their eye level. Maybe you FaceTime grandma and you flip the iPad around to show, look, grandma, we have rules. When you come visit us, when this pandemic's over, you're going to have to follow the rules. And there's no biting in our house. There's also no guns, right? You let people know this is what we do in our house. So what does it look like when you have rules? They're going to help you communicate when things are happening. Before, when you have an expectation of a certain behavior, like listening, you can be preemptive. You're going to get down on that person's eye level and say, I need good listening. You ready? Boots, snow pants, coat, go. Right? You're going to keep that language short. Communicate what the expectation is, good listening, right? And then their ears perk up. Ooh, that's our rule. What if someone's in the act? Someone, is tipping back in their chair at dinner. You've been saying, stop tipping back in your chair. Stop tipping back in your chair. Shorten your words. Stop. Not safe, right? That's our rule. Our rule is to be safe. And then you can use those rules after. If someone did something that was just as expected, just as you'd wanted, then you want to name that. I really appreciate you bringing your plate to the sink. That was such good helping. Oh, right? Feel good when someone says that. And then you use it when you need to correct and redirect. We're going to take a break until you're ready to be safe, right? And you want to name those things that are positive, that are happening, because energy flows where the attention goes. So keep, commenting on those positives. Oh, that was such good helping. I really appreciate that. Thank you for listening. You really are helping our day go good. You know, thank you for being safe. Thank you. Right? You can kind of comment. Those things are happening. I'm going to comment on them. So now we're going to talk a little bit about routines. It's a little bit different than rules, right? If we had a rule about every routine, our rule list would be too long, right? So we just trust that there's certain ways that we do things in our house, and certain things that we do. Routines communicate expectations just like rules do. We have routines at bedtimes. We can make routines about how we're going to leave a place that's fun, like a park or a friend's house. And if your detective work reveals that you are struggling to leave a park or leave a cousin's house, I encourage you to think about that with your child and to create a routine with that child. And you would start that conversation at a calm moment where you're both regulated and talk about the last time that it was hard. And you could start it with, I noticed that you had a really hard time leaving your cousin's house. Do you remember that? Yeah, and you were so sad. And then I yelled, and then you were crying in the car, and we both felt pretty bad. Remember? And then you could talk about, how could we make that go well? Should I tell you, give you a warning? It doesn't matter what the routine is, but it's something that is going to kind of help that kid remember, right? This is the way we do it. This is expected. It still might not be their favorite, but it's just another strategy to kind of get you guys to stay on the same page. So I talked about those big changes in our life, right? Someone's going to start working outside the home, grandma moves in, some shift in childcare, whatever it is. So those are times where we need to reassess, what do we need? So I used to work in schools. I'd be off in the summer. I would go back to work in the fall. I went back to work one fall and our childcare had changed. So I got through about a month and a half, just kind of limping along and like making it work. And then like a month and a half in, I ended up just having a major breakdown. I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is too hard. And so I decided I really needed to commit to taking care of my needs before I, transitioned from work mode into family mode. And I was like, so what does that look like for me? And I had to set some boundaries and create some new family routines and some new habits for myself. So what did that look like? I realized I have to have a snack and I have to go to the bathroom before I leave work to pick up my kids. I was skipping those things. And then I was in, halt. I realized Tuesdays were my tough day for whatever reason. So we're going to do dinner out on Tuesdays. We walked a block and a half to go to the hot dog stand. It was cheap, but there was no cooking, no cleanup. And my kids came to look forward to it. And then the other thing I realized was I just needed a little bit of time to myself. I really wasn't getting it. So I was going to commit to waking up before my kids. Not too much, but just enough so I caught my breath before the day began. So those are worthwhile things to kind of think about and reassess when you have those big changes. Are our routines still working, or do we need to maybe look at some new ones? So here we are, we're talking about being set up for success, right? We're laying the groundwork. We want to make sure everybody's on board. They know what's expected. They know what the rules are. We want to have some routines in place for those constant things that we do on a regular basis so that everybody kind of knows. Tuesday nights, hot dog night. Put your shoes on, we're walking down there. No, we're not driving, we're not going in the car, we're walking. Everybody, let's go. Right? We're going to build in those routines. We're going to build in some habits that are going to support us. So the final key here to success in meeting your kids' needs every day is we want to think about, are we getting our connection with them? Are they getting their connection from us? physical play, and then are we prepared to repair for on those times that we might lose it, right? When things don't go so well. So one way I want to look at that is through our child's love language, right? If you're not familiar with love languages, it's from the work of Gary Chapman. He's a couples counselor, and he came up with this idea that we all have a different love language. We have them, our partner has them, and it can be helpful in a relationship to know how your partner likes to receive love and understand how they're giving love to you. And when you know how you like to receive love, you can be explicit and ask for it. Well, this can apply to our children as well, right? And how they feel loved. So the 5 different languages are acts of service, words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, and gifts. So what does that look like? Acts of service, right? This could be as simple as you're always opening that cereal box for them. I call it, mine raccoon it. It's like, it looks like a raccoon with his claws got in there. Mom, will you open this for me? Of course. You do it. Help me, right? That's being asked for an act of service. Words of affirmation, right? The kid that loves to hear, you call him sweetheart or honey or any other affectionate word, or praise or encouragement, that really lifts them up and buoys them. Then there's kids who just crave that physical touch, right? Cuddles and kisses and back rubs. They want to play chase and they want you to catch them, right? Then there's quality time. That's often the kid who's chatty, and is going to tell you all about the book they read from chapter to chapter to chapter. Takes as long to listen to the synopsis as it would have to read the book. But they want to play with you. They want to show you things. They're seeking out eye contact and they really demand your full attention. That's how they feel loved by you. And then that last one is gifts, giving gifts, receiving gifts, right? Do you get like the little origami thing with some like glitter and little trinkets stuffed inside with mom written on it, right? A little gift. Doesn't have to be toys, but anything that's special to them. And what if you're like, I don't even know. I don't know what my child's love language is. How will I know? How will I make sure they know I love them? Right? We're not talking about perfection. We're talking about connection. That's what really builds attuned relationships. That's how kids feel secure and they grow to become, fully attached kids who can then seek out safe, attached relationships in their adult life. We're looking for connection. So connection, a daily need, and then physical play, right? And I feel like anyone that's living through winter knows that it's when we don't get our physical play, it's really hard, right? People have more meltdowns. People are in crazy moods. So how do we incorporate that in? That old cassette tape, for those of you that don't know, they used to be played and music would come off of them. But music, dance parties, building that into your time. The bath, we can take baths in the middle of the day, but it doesn't have to be just at bedtime or in the morning. If we need to kind of kill some time, it's a great sensory, full body, physical time for kids. There's that picture right in the center there, that dad chasing, right? Lots of chase. Trampolines, great way to get out energy. And then those big blocks, right? Just made out of cardboard. That's like, makes me also think of just having the couch cushions and forts and being able to knock things down like you're the big Kool-Aid man busting through the wall. And then of course, we got to talk about getting outside, right? And as hard as this is, there really is no such thing as bad weather. It's just bad clothing. Get out there. A few minutes out in the fresh air does wonders for you. There's so many benefits to being outside and especially outdoor play. It is a mood enhancer. The light is brighter. All those things are so good for our mental health. It reduces stress. It improves concentration. When we're able to exercise and play outside, there's gross motor development that's happening, and then all the other benefits you get from exercise. It helps with executive functioning, development when you're able to kind of think through and plan your moves outside. And of course, it helps with sleep. The other thing that I want to talk about, though, and if you've heard me talk before, you've probably heard me talk about roughhousing. And this isn't play fighting, but it's a beautiful place where physical activity and connection can come together. It's intentional roughhousing, right? So look at that dad who has his kid out in the airplane, right? That's what I mean by roughhousing, that you are physical together and you're playful together with different activities like that. So I have two other little pictures there. You can see the little feet of the monkeys jumping on the bed. That can always be a game that you're involved in, maybe not on the bed, but trying to capture people who are jumping on the bed. That's a way to make that a connection game. The taco, right? Sometimes we play taco in our house. They lay on the blanket, half of it, you fold up the other half. Maybe you put a couch cushion on top of them and you squish that taco, right? There's pizza. Sometimes we play pizza. The kid lays out. You knead the dough, right? You give them little massages up and down their arms. Maybe a little whale bite right on that sensitive, reflex spot right above the knee. But you massage the dough and then you spread some tomato sauce over it. And then you might check in. What should we put on this pizza? Oh, apples? Okay, I'm going to sprinkle on my apples. But whenever we're doing this kind of play with our kids, we want to do it at a time where we feel like we have the energy, because you want it to be playful and bright. And you want to tune into your kid, right? What else should go on our pizza, right? You don't need to sneak attack, because that doesn't feel safe. That can get a kid to be a little bit alerted and it might flip a lid. We always want to do this kind of play earlier in the day versus later. Don't start it after supper. You want to do it before, right? Because it winds us up, and that's good. We want to get that kind of energy going, and then we want to have enough time for people to come down from those highs. I said no obnoxious tickling, right? Tickling has a lot to do with who's in control, and it doesn't always feel good when you lose control when you're a kid. So we leave, you're attuned to them. You're making eye contact, and you're doing what brings the laughs, right? Kind of follow the laughter. Is that good? More. And then you want to be cautious, right? So no one gets hurt, but you want to have fun. So if we're connecting, if we're providing time for physical activity, that's the kind of the foundation and the baseline for kids to be getting what they need in the day. I just want to talk a little bit about rupture and repair. So when we think about parent-child relationships and we think about healthy attachment that kids develop, it's really so dependent on parent-child attunement, right? I see you, we're connected, I see what you need, I can meet your need, I feel safe and secure as the child. In attached relationships, though, we don't need to be attuned every moment of the day with our child and feel like we're failing when we're not attuned. Healthy attached relationships reflect attunement that's happening only 30% of the time. Only 30%. So that means 70%, we're not quite totally attuned, and our child is still going to grow up with a healthy attachment, with a sense that they're cared for, their needs are met, that they are loved, safe, and secure. I feel like that's a little bit of relief, right? Like, okay, I can do 30%. We also want to be conscious that it is okay, just like that Donald Winnicott quote about the mother who knows the human experience versus the mother who doesn't know self-doubt. It's okay for our child to see our ugly side as well as our good side, as long as we're working on integrating that so that they understand this is how a human being is, right? I can't be all good. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. There's no such thing as a perfect child. There's no such thing as a perfect human. And in integrating that, how do we do that? By repairing, by apologizing when we become that bad parent or that scary parent. And when we're apologizing with our children, we want to kind of think about what that moment was like for them. I bet it was scary when I yelled. I'm guessing it was a little surprising when I dropped the dish and said the bad word. Yeah, that might have been a little unexpected, a little scary. Because when we're able to do that, we can organize, right? That kind of inner system that's like, what just happened? And we let them know. We take responsibility for that bad parent, those bad, tough moments that are, less expected, so that they can understand what it means to be human. And I love this quote. Apologies aren't meant to change the past. They're meant to change the future. And with parents and children, that's about staying in relationship together. And I always put this in here because for the bad days, when you lose it, because there will still be those days, remember, everyone is doing the best that they can with the skills that they have in that moment. So, yes, he knows how to put his shoes on. He's not putting his shoes on today. Maybe he is hungry, angry, lonely, tired. He doesn't have access to that. I'm frustrated, but I will slow down and I will meet him where he is and I will help him. He's doing his best. He's doing his best, but also I am doing my best as a parent. Man, I didn't handle that so well. And you can say that. Wow, I really wish I handled that better. I'm having a tough day, right? And you own those moments. You forgive yourself. You repair with your child and you move on. To remember that very few things need to be fixed right now, right? Unless it's a real emergency, it's not an emergency. You might go to bed and you might fix that thing with your child in the morning. And tomorrow is a fresh start, right? So we can let tomorrow be a fresh start if we kind of put our worries, our self-judgment to bed that day, right? And let ourselves and our child start fresh tomorrow. So here we come to the end. I want to just wrap up and touch on kind of all the things that we moved through tonight. So self-awareness, that's where we started. Knowing your brain states, right? The brainstem, that emotional state, and then our executive problem-solving state. When you flip your lid, I hope that's helpful to you. Halt, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or if you have to go to the bathroom. That we experience sensory overwhelm as adults, and that shark music, that unconscious thing that gets stirred in us from our own childhood, and parental stress, all of these things are kind of the why are we yelling? So how do we soothe ourselves? We talked about self-regulation, needing to use brain, mind, thought strategies, as well as body strategies. So what can you do in those moments that you think you're going to lose it? What can you think in those moments? We talked about boundaries being self-care. Don't should on yourself, right? You are in charge of your thoughts, feelings, and behavior. No one makes you feel a certain way. And we want to be reframing that negative thinking so we don't get sucked further down. And then boundaries in the home. We need to be a detective. Where's the problem? Where do we need to make a plan? How are we going to create some rules for our family that gets everybody on the same page? And then where are we going to be implementing some new routines? I talked about connection and physical play. Those are daily needs that really all of us have, not just our children, but we're going to make sure those needs get met for our kids. Thinking about maybe what your child's love language is, and that you're striving for connection, not perfection. Attunement is only happening 30% of the time in healthy attached relationships. We can do that. And then we're apologizing when we lose it because we're thinking about what that experience was for our child. Maybe it was scary, maybe it was unexpected, and we're going to own that and organize that experience for them. So here we are at the end. This is a lot of information. So I just want you to pause and think about one thing that really stood out to you and either jot it down, make a mental note. And was there one thing that you heard tonight that you're going to try, right? What's something that you would try tomorrow? And then was there one thing that you heard that you want to know more about that you might Google? GTS, that's what we say. Google that shit. Go find out about more of it, right? So I just want to thank you guys for taking the time, spending it with me, with the Alliance tonight. I really, like I said at the beginning, I love working with parents. I love thinking and problem solving with parents about this, about their kids' behavior. So you can find me. My website is there, mollypopeparentcoach.com. You could find me on Instagram and Facebook. And I'm going to be honest, I just got on there yesterday. So come join me, come follow me. I promise that I'm going to deliver things that are serviceable, that are helpful, and that you're going to find supportive. That's my goal. And if you wanted to reach out, you can always email me. It's molly@mollypopeparentcoach.com. Thanks, Steph.
Thank you, Molly. I have to say, what stood out to me was the don't shit on yourself. As a mom to a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, I think that is so funny. And I think it's something I need to write down and like put on a board somewhere. So thank you for sharing all of your expertise. And, you gave so many tangible tools and tips, like you promised, on a topic that I feel like really hit home. And we had a really good turnout for tonight's program. If you want to watch it again, or you want to share it with a friend who wasn't here, we will be emailing it to everyone who registered. And then we will also be posting it on our website and all of our social media, along with all of our other pandemic parenting tools and tips programs that Molly has put on. And yes, follow her on Instagram, follow her on Facebook. Molly has a lot to share and offer. Connect with her if you have your own parent needs that you would like to explore on a personal level. It was really great. And so we have one more program coming up that is on April 8th. It's our final in this series of the pandemic parenting tools and tips. It's recognizing anxiety and depression in young children. And although that is maybe seem like a heavy and scary topic, we just hosted a similar program for our educators, and it was so well received and attended. And we felt that it was so important to share this message with our parents as well during, such a difficult year. So mark your calendars. If you want to register and get a head start, you can already do that on our website. And once again, thank you for being here. You're doing great. And it's been a really tough year, and we're here to support you. So please continue to connect with the Alliance, and we wish you the best of luck, and you're doing the best with what you can, just like Molly said. Okay, so please take the quick evaluation survey when you're done. It helps us improve our programs and get support from our funders. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.